Every morning he was there, standing silently by the river, watching. At first, she thought it was coincidence, until curiosity became impossible to resist. The first time she noticed him, it was just after sunrise. Mist hovered over the river, curling in silver threads around the trunks of ancient pines. She had stepped outside her cabin to breathe the crisp morning air, coffee mug in hand, still half asleep. And there he was, a massive brown bear standing just at the river's edge, watching. Not moving, not aggressive, just observing. Her heart froze. Her first instinct was fear. Every survival guide she had ever read, every story told around campfires, screamed at her to retreat, to hide, to avoid confrontation. She froze instead, the mug trembling in her hands. The bear's amber eyes locked on hers, unblinking, calculating. It was as if the forest itself had delivered a message: observe, respect, survive. She whispered under her breath, "Please don't come closer." But the bear didn't move. He simply stood, ripples forming at his massive paws where the river lapped gently. The water reflected golden light, and she caught the glint of dew on moss-covered rocks, the way mist curled in the air, the subtle tension in every muscle of his massive frame. The cubs she had read about in wildlife guides came to mind, instinctively protective, but also capable of immense patience. She realized then that he wasn't just there, he was choosing to be there. Her eyes followed him as he shifted slightly, large shoulder muscles rippling, paws pressing into the wet riverbank. And then he did something that stopped her cold. He looked at her, directly, patiently, not with hunger, not with aggression, but with awareness. And in that moment, she knew instinctively that he had been here before. The question gnawed at her mind: why him? Why this bear? She tried to dismiss it. Maybe he was just passing through, a wanderer like so many others. She turned back to the cabin, pretending to busy herself with breakfast, but each time she stepped outside, he was there. Day after day, at the exact same spot, at the first light. She tried to ignore him, told herself it was coincidence, but the feeling of being watched, of a silent presence, began to weigh heavily. On the third morning, she lingered longer by the river, her curiosity overpowering her fear. The bear remained, still standing, watching. This time, however, he did not just watch the forest or the river, he watched her. And as their eyes met, a strange realization settled over her: this was no random encounter. He was waiting, not for food, not for aggression, but for something she couldn't yet comprehend. Her chest tightened. She stepped closer to the cabin railing, trying to measure distance. She had grown up reading about wildlife safety: always maintain eye contact, never turn your back, never run. Yet something in her urged her forward, compelled her to understand, to bridge the chasm between fear and fascination. And as she did, he took one step closer to the river, not toward her, but closer to a bend in the river she hadn't noticed before. For hours, she watched, barely moving, barely breathing. The bear's patience was staggering. He would glance down at the water, sniff the air, then glance at her again. And then, finally, he moved. Not toward her, but upstream, along a narrow trail that disappeared into dense pines. Curiosity burned in her chest. She knew then that she would follow. Somehow, some way, she had to understand what drew him here, day after day. She grabbed her coat, boots, and a small pack, her mind racing. Every step she took was careful, measured. The forest was slippery, still damp from morning dew. Mist clung to her hair and coat. Each snap of a twig underfoot seemed deafening. And yet, she felt the bear was aware of her, not threatened, just mindful, guiding in silence. She paused when the trail narrowed, watching the bear's massive form vanish behind a thick pine. Her pulse raced. This was dangerous. Every survival instinct screamed for her to turn back. But she couldn't. Not now. Not when the answer lay ahead. She followed silently, keeping the river on her right, listening to the soft splash of water over rocks, to the distant caw of a crow echoing in the mist. And then she saw it, a shallow pool where the bear stopped, lowering his massive head to lap water, cub-sized paw leaving deep impressions in the mud. She crouched behind a tree, observing, noting every detail. Amber eyes scanning, massive frame moving with careful grace, patience in every motion. And then she heard it, a faint sound, almost imperceptible. The bear wasn't just drinking. His nostrils flared, and he sniffed something upstream, then turned and padded silently into thick underbrush. She felt a thrill of adrenaline and unease. What had he sensed? And why did it seem personal? Her curiosity burned hotter. She stepped cautiously, following the trail he had left, each footfall measured, heart racing, senses stretched to the limit. Minutes stretched into an hour. The mist thickened, sunlight breaking through only in scattered beams. And then, just as she was considering turning back, she saw a movement in the clearing ahead. The bear had stopped again, standing near a small cluster of fallen logs, paw raised slightly. And there, glinting softly in the morning light, she noticed something, a small, tattered object wedged between moss and roots. The bear's gaze fixed on it, intense, careful, almost reverent. She held her breath. Her mind raced with possibilities. Could it be food? A scent trail? Something left behind by humans? The bear seemed to guard it, yet not consume it. Her chest tightened. And in that moment, she understood the bear's visits, the precise timing every dawn, the unwavering patience. It wasn't random. He was waiting. Waiting for her to notice. Waiting for her to follow. She swallowed hard, feeling both awe and fear. Every instinct screamed to retreat, yet every ounce of curiosity propelled her forward. And then she realized this was only the beginning. Whatever lay ahead, the bear had already chosen her to witness it. The forest seemed to hold its breath, mist swirling thicker, sunlight flickering through leaves, the river gurgling quietly nearby. She takes a cautious step forward, mist curling around her boots, heart pounding, and suddenly the bear turns, amber eyes locking on hers, as if acknowledging her decision to follow. She freezes, realizing that crossing this threshold will change everything. She froze in the mist, every heartbeat hammering in her chest as the bear's amber eyes held hers. There was a weight to that gaze, a kind of intelligence that made her skin tingle and her instincts scream in equal measure. She had followed him this far, drawn by curiosity, compelled by something she could not name, yet a nagging voice of caution whispered that she was crossing boundaries she didn't fully understand. The bear, massive and composed, shifted slightly, ears swiveling toward the sound of rushing water and distant bird calls, muscles coiled beneath thick fur, as if acknowledging her presence yet communicating silently, "Stay where you are. Watch, but do not interfere." She exhaled slowly, careful not to disturb the fragile tension of the moment. Her boots pressed against the damp forest floor, moss squishing underfoot, and she could hear the faint trickle of water from the river. The bear moved again, deliberate and measured, circling the shallow clearing where a small cluster of logs formed a natural break in the terrain. The cub-sized paw prints left behind indicated his careful passage over roots and rocks, each movement precise and mindful. She crouched lower, adjusting her coat to keep the mist from her face, and observed the bear's subtle behaviors. It became apparent that the bear wasn't acting randomly. He was assessing the environment, evaluating the surrounding forest, and possibly anticipating something or someone else. Her mind raced. Could it be another bear? A scent trail? The tattered object wedged between moss and roots she had glimpsed earlier? Every detail mattered, and she found herself leaning in instinctively, balancing curiosity and fear. The air was dense with moisture, each breath she took tasting of damp earth and pine resin. Sunlight filtered in faint beams, illuminating the mist in ghostly swirls around the bear's silhouette. She edged closer, mindful of the uneven ground. Roots protruded from the soil like fingers, and every misstep could send her tumbling, alerting the bear to her proximity. Her pulse raced as she calculated every movement. The bear lowered its massive head toward the tattered object, sniffing carefully. She noted the intensity in its amber eyes, the slight twitch of ears, and the slow rise and fall of its shoulders as it exhaled. Something was clearly compelling him, something she couldn't yet perceive. And yet, she felt an inexplicable connection forming, a bridge between human and wild intelligence, tenuous but undeniable. Minutes stretched, each second elongated by anticipation. She caught a faint scent on the breeze, something sweet, earthy, faintly metallic, that seemed to draw her attention to the same tattered object. The bear pawed gently at it, nudging it toward a patch of sun-dappled soil. Then he paused, ears swiveling again, amber eyes narrowing in concentration. She realized the bear was attempting to communicate through action, using gesture and movement as a form of instruction or signaling. Her curiosity flared. What did he want her to understand? A sudden rustle behind a fallen log startled her. She froze, turning slowly. Shadows shifted in the mist, and she caught the silhouette of the forest around her, deer moving quietly through ferns, birds flitting between branches, but nothing approached her directly. Still, the bear's posture stiffened slightly, muscles tensing beneath its thick fur. He turned his gaze toward the unseen disturbance, ears pricked, then returned to the tattered object. She noticed the careful orchestration of attention, predator and observer coexisting in the same space, mutually aware yet non-confrontational. Her curiosity overcame hesitation. She took a careful step forward, keeping a low profile behind a moss-covered boulder. The bear's head flicked toward her for a brief moment, then returned to his focus. She realized that the moment for passive observation was ending. The bear's actions were intentional, directed, and possibly meant to be understood by her. She swallowed hard, heart hammering, and leaned slightly to get a better view of the object he seemed to guard. It was partially buried under moss, a small bundle of sticks and dried leaves wrapped around something soft, perhaps an old piece of fabric or animal hide. The bear nudged it again, then stepped back, positioning himself between the bundle and her line of sight. The cub-like paw prints beside the adult indicated that he had brought something here before, repeated this behavior over multiple dawns, and was now inviting or challenging her to follow. The forest felt alive around her, mist curling in spirals, sunlight cutting through in warm shafts, water rippling gently in the nearby stream. Her pulse quickened, she felt simultaneously awed and terrified. She considered retreating, her mind racing with the survival rules drilled into her through books and personal experience. Don't approach. Keep distance. Never surprise a bear. And yet, a deeper instinct, a whisper from curiosity and empathy, urged her forward. The bear had not attacked, had not shown signs of aggression, but had instead repeated this ritual every dawn, patiently, persistently. There was a story here, and she could feel it pressing against the edges of perception. Taking another step, careful to land on flat, mossy ground, she inched closer. Each movement was deliberate, her eyes locked on the bear's posture, the subtle shifts in weight, the careful guarding of the bundle. The bear paused, head cocked slightly, amber eyes assessing, as if measuring her intent. She froze in place, holding her breath. The air was thick with tension, the forest around her seeming to pulse in anticipation. Every snapping twig, every splash of water, every distant bird call felt amplified, as if nature itself were holding its collective breath. The bear then did something unexpected. He turned and padded a few steps upstream, pausing beside a cluster of rocks partially submerged in water. His amber eyes flicked back toward her briefly, and she understood, a silent invitation to follow. Her stomach tightened. This was the pivotal moment. She had crossed the threshold of fear into something deeper, trust, or at least cautious permission. She adjusted her coat, tightened her boots, and moved carefully behind him, following at a safe but deliberate distance. The trail led her through a narrow gorge, mist rising from the stream, rocks slick with moss and water. Sunlight barely penetrated the dense canopy, creating fragmented beams that illuminated parts of the trail, guiding her path. Every sound was magnified, the bear's padded steps in the wet soil, the subtle splashes as he tested the water, the rustle of leaves overhead. She felt acutely aware of her own breathing, every movement measured, yet a strange exhilaration coursed through her veins. And then, just as she rounded a bend, she caught sight of a larger clearing ahead. The bear had stopped at the edge, towering and still, amber eyes fixed on a particular spot. Her pulse raced. Something lay ahead, something the bear considered significant enough to guide her to see. She crouched behind a fallen log, peering cautiously, heart hammering with anticipation and fear. What had he been bringing her here to witness? What secret did the forest hold? As the mist lifted slightly, she finally saw it, a small, wounded fawn lying among the rocks, barely moving. The bear stood over it, not with aggression, but protective vigilance, amber eyes scanning the forest. Her heart caught in her throat. Was this the reason for his repeated visits? And now, she had to decide, would she intervene, or let nature follow its course? Her chest tightened as she watched the bear shift slightly, placing his massive frame between her line of sight and the wounded fawn. His amber eyes scanned the surrounding forest, muscles coiled beneath thick brown fur, as if anticipating a threat from any unseen predator, or even from her. Every instinct screamed at her to remain still, not to make a sound, to let the natural order unfold. But curiosity and compassion gnawed at her resolve. She had followed him this far, she couldn't simply turn away now. The fawn's small body trembled with each shallow breath. Its legs were bent awkwardly beneath it, and patches of fur were matted with dried blood and dew. The bear nudged it gently with his snout, assessing its condition, and she realized with a jolt that the bear's concern was not simply for instinctive hunting or protection of his own cubs. This was something deeper. He had recognized suffering, and he had responded in a way that demanded her attention. She crouched lower behind a moss-covered boulder, trying to steady her shaking hands. Her boots pressed into wet soil, leaving faint impressions that she hoped the bear wouldn't notice. Each step, each breath seemed amplified in the quiet, mist-laden forest. The river beside them gurgled quietly, flowing over rocks and fallen branches, adding a gentle soundtrack to the tense tableau. Her mind raced, weighing options, calculating danger, considering the delicate balance between human intervention and the natural instincts of the animal kingdom. The bear nudged the fawn again, this time using one massive paw to gently roll it onto its side, checking for injuries. Amber eyes flicked toward her briefly, assessing. She froze, heart hammering. This was no ordinary encounter, she was a silent witness to a lesson in empathy, awareness, and survival. Every movement, every gesture from the bear communicated a depth of understanding that was almost human, yet rooted entirely in instinct and experience. The fawn whimpered softly, and she felt a pang of helplessness. Should she intervene? Could she risk startling the bear? Her instincts screamed caution, but something in her chest urged her forward. She shifted slightly to get a better view, and the bear's gaze snapped back to her, ears twitching. He lowered his head, giving a low, guttural growl, not threatening, but warning her to respect boundaries. She froze, realizing that she was being tested, measured, observed. Time stretched as the mist thickened around the clearing. Sunlight filtered through the pines in fractured beams, illuminating patches of wet moss and the river's glistening surface. The bear circled the fawn carefully, sniffing, nudging, assessing, every movement deliberate. She noted the fluid grace in his steps, the subtle shifts in weight, the tension in muscles that spoke of immense strength restrained by awareness. The forest seemed alive, every sound magnified, the rustle of leaves, the drip of water from branches, the faint scuttling of unseen creatures. She took a careful breath and edged slightly closer, keeping low, trying to measure the distance. Her pulse raced as she noted the subtle interaction between bear and fawn. The bear's behavior was protective, yet not aggressive. He was not claiming it as prey, but rather monitoring, perhaps even teaching her something about observation, caution, and empathy in the wild. The fawn's trembling grew more pronounced, and she felt an irresistible urge to act, to offer aid, but she knew the wrong step could provoke disaster. Suddenly, a branch snapped somewhere upstream. Both the bear and the fawn's ears twitched. The bear's head snapped toward the sound, muscles tensing, amber eyes narrowing in vigilance. The forest held its breath. She froze, heart hammering, aware that her presence might be detected if she moved incorrectly. The bear let out a soft, low rumble, a warning, not a threat, then turned back to the fawn. Her stomach tightened. She realized the bear was asserting control over the situation, establishing safety for the fawn, and demonstrating patience and restraint that would have been unimaginable to witness anywhere else. The fawn lifted its head slightly, eyes wide and trusting, as the bear nudged it again with careful precision. She realized that the bear's repeated dawn visits weren't random or merely curious, they were a ritual of assessment and protection. And now, by following him, she had been drawn into a rare and intimate observation of natural instincts executed with intelligence and empathy. Her mind reeled at the complexity of behavior she was witnessing. This was not a simple act of survival, this was a lesson in awareness, caution, and respect for life. Her own breathing became slow and deliberate, matching the rhythm of the forest around her. The bear shifted, stepping slightly closer to the fawn while maintaining a vigilant gaze on the surrounding area. Every muscle in his frame coiled with readiness, yet there was no aggression, only calculated caution. She could feel the tension in the air, the fragile balance between predator and prey, between human and animal observer. Each movement, each glance, each twitch of an ear held significance. She inched closer again, careful to remain downwind and out of sight. Mist clung to her coat and hair, droplets settling on the branches above. The bear's massive paws pressed into soft soil, leaving deep impressions, each step measured. The fawn's body quivered with every sound, yet the bear's presence reassured it. Her heart pounded as she watched him gently manipulate the terrain, nudging the fawn into a small patch of sunlight where it could rest safely, protected from the cold river mist. A faint rustling came from further upstream, a deer, perhaps, or another small animal disturbed by the morning light. The bear's head snapped toward the sound, nostrils flaring, muscles rippling. His amber eyes swept the clearing, assessing. The fawn pressed closer, instincts alert yet guided by the protective presence. She realized the bear's patience was remarkable. He had chosen to monitor, teach, and protect, rather than act impulsively. Every step, every nudge, every subtle posture adjustment conveyed intent and intelligence. Time passed slowly. The mist thickened around them, curling in soft spirals around trunks and rocks. Sunlight flickered in beams that illuminated patches of the forest floor, highlighting the bear's imposing frame and the tiny fawn nestled safely in moss. She shifted slightly, adjusting her weight, and the bear's head turned briefly toward her, amber eyes measuring her intent. She froze, heart hammering, realizing that the moment she had entered this space, she had become part of a delicate equilibrium that demanded respect, patience, and acute awareness. Then, the bear did something unexpected. He nudged the fawn gently with his snout, guiding it toward a shallow clearing with tall grass and sunlight. His movements were deliberate, almost instructional. She realized with a thrill that he was not only protecting the fawn, but also showing her the importance of observation, learning from nature, and understanding the language of instinct. Every flick of an ear, every shift of weight, every careful movement spoke volumes, teaching lessons she could never have learned from a book. Her pulse quickened as she realized the bear was inviting her to witness something extraordinary. The fawn's body quivered less now, its trust in the bear absolute. She felt a surge of awe and humility. To be included, even silently, in such a ritual of protection and instruction was rare. Her fear mixed with exhilaration. She took a careful step forward, keeping low, focusing on every detail, the bear's subtle head movements, the fawn's tentative glances, the soft ripple of water in the nearby river. And then, a sudden sound, something breaking in the underbrush, caused both the bear and the fawn to freeze. Amber eyes locked onto the source, muscles coiled, tension radiating through the clearing. She froze as well, heart hammering, aware that the slightest misstep could disrupt the fragile balance. The mist thickened, curling around trees, river shimmering softly in the morning light. And in that charged silence, she realized she was witnessing something extraordinary, the intersection of instinct, intelligence, and trust, laid bare in the wild. A shadow moved in the mist upstream, a second bear, larger, older, and undeniably territorial. The first bear's stance stiffened, amber eyes narrowing, muscles coiled like springs. She swallowed hard, realizing that the delicate balance she had observed was about to be tested, and her next move could change everything. The shadow in the mist upstream solidified as the second bear emerged, massive and imposing, fur darkened by morning moisture, eyes sharp and calculating. The first bear stiffened, shoulders rising, ears swiveling back slightly. The fawn, startled by the subtle shift in energy, pressed closer to the protective bear's side, trembling with instinctive fear. The forest seemed to hold its breath, the usual background symphony of birdsong and river ripples fading into a tense, almost tangible silence. She remained crouched behind the moss-covered log, heart pounding, eyes wide as she realized that the delicate balance she had been observing was about to be tested in a way she could not have anticipated. The bears assessed each other, the older, larger bear moving in measured steps toward the clearing, muscles rippling beneath thick fur, jaw slightly parted as if tasting the morning air. The first bear lowered himself slightly, placing a protective stance over the fawn, amber eyes locking onto the intruder. Every instinctual motion screamed of territorial assertion, yet there was restraint, intelligence, and precision in every gesture. She watched, frozen, as the two bears began a subtle dance, feet shifting, heads lowering, eyes assessing, not rushing, but each moment weighted with latent power. Her pulse raced. She had read about bear behavior extensively, had studied wildlife documentaries and field reports, but nothing prepared her for the raw, immediate reality of two apex predators negotiating space in real time. The fawn, small and fragile, remained partially hidden behind the first bear, whose massive frame seemed both shielding and instructive. She realized the bear's repeated dawn visits were not random, they were a ritual, a teaching, an observation of boundaries, patience, and survival instincts, and she had been drawn into the middle of it. The older bear approached, sniffing the air, nostrils flaring. Its amber eyes were focused, but there was no overt aggression, only the calculated evaluation of territory and intent. The first bear, massive and steady, shifted slightly, maintaining its protective stance over the fawn while simultaneously demonstrating dominance and authority. The tension in the air was palpable, almost electric, as the two giants of the forest communicated silently, instinctively, with a language she could barely comprehend yet felt deeply in her chest. The fawn, eyes wide, watched silently, sensing the tension but trusting the first bear's presence. She noted the delicate choreography, the way the first bear positioned his body to shield, to observe, to intimidate without engaging in a fight. She realized that this display was a lesson in itself. Survival was as much about observation, patience, and strategy as it was about strength and speed. Each shift of weight, each measured step, each subtle flick of an ear was intentional. And she, a human observer, was being entrusted with witnessing it, perhaps even learning from it. Her hands were trembling slightly as she clutched the moss-covered log for support. Every nerve in her body was alert. The mist clung to her coat, dampening her hair, and the forest seemed to close in around her. Sunlight broke through in fragmented beams, illuminating patches of the clearing, glinting off dew-laden leaves and the wet fur of the bears. The river beside them flowed gently, adding a soft, constant rhythm to the tense tableau. She could feel the pulse of the forest, a living, breathing entity coexisting with these powerful animals, and she knew she was witnessing something extraordinary and fragile. The older bear let out a low rumble, resonating through the clearing. It was a sound not of threat, but of assertion, a declaration of presence and dominance. The first bear responded with a subtle shift, growl low in the throat, amber eyes locking onto the intruder with unwavering intensity. She noted the almost imperceptible nuances, the slight raising of a shoulder, the controlled exhalation, the positioning of paws in relation to the fawn. This was instinct at its most refined, a symphony of survival behavior she had never imagined witnessing firsthand. And then, the unexpected happened. The older bear took a deliberate step back, lowering his head slightly. His eyes flicked toward the fawn, then toward the first bear, and finally, in a subtle, almost imperceptible gesture, he retreated into the mist. The first bear's posture relaxed slightly, the fawn's trembling eased, and she realized that she had just observed a non-violent resolution to what could have been a deadly confrontation. The forest exhaled with her, tension dissipating, but the questions remained. Why had the first bear brought her here? Why had he chosen to reveal this moment of instinctual teaching to her? Her curiosity, mixed with awe and lingering fear, propelled her forward. She stepped cautiously from behind her hiding spot, careful not to startle either animal. The bear's amber eyes flicked toward her, and she froze, aware that any misstep could undo the delicate equilibrium she had witnessed. But instead of retreating, he remained calm, standing protectively near the fawn, acknowledging her presence without aggression. She realized in that instant that a silent understanding had been established. She was allowed to observe, but boundaries were still inviolate. As she crouched lower, taking in every detail, she noticed the fawn's condition more clearly. Small cuts along its legs and ribs indicated a struggle, likely from escaping a predator or falling into a shallow ravine. The first bear nudged it gently with his massive snout, guiding it to a safer spot under a sun-dappled cluster of ferns. The movement was deliberate, precise, almost nurturing. She could feel a lump in her throat, the mixture of awe and emotional connection overwhelming her senses. This was not a simple predator-prey interaction, it was something more profound, a protective, almost moral instinct displayed in the wild. She inched a little closer, careful to stay downwind and low. The mist swirled around her boots and coat, and the sunlight caught in droplets on the branches above, casting fractured rays across the clearing. The river beside them rippled quietly, water lapping gently against rocks and fallen branches. Every sound, every movement seemed amplified, the forest holding a fragile balance between tranquility and tension. The bear remained vigilant, amber eyes constantly sweeping the surroundings, but there was no threat to her, only silent instruction and observation. Her mind raced. Could she intervene? Should she? The bear had demonstrated remarkable control, patience, and understanding. Any human interference could disrupt the delicate balance, yet the fawn's vulnerability tugged at her empathy. She considered calling for help, but any noise might provoke a reaction. She decided to wait, to watch, to learn. The bear's repeated dawn visits were a lesson in trust and timing, and she now understood that every movement was deliberate, every pause purposeful. As she observed, she noticed subtle signs, the fawn's breathing becoming steadier, the protective bear adjusting his stance to shield it from the morning sun, and occasional glances toward her, assessing her presence. The realization struck her, this bear had chosen her as a witness, perhaps even a silent participant in his ritual. His repeated visits, the careful orchestration of behavior, the awareness of boundaries, it was all meant to be seen, absorbed, understood. And she was beginning to comprehend. And then, something unexpected happened. A rustle in the underbrush upstream, subtle at first, grew louder. The bear's ears twitched, muscles coiling beneath thick fur. Amber eyes narrowed. The fawn pressed closer to him instinctively. Her heart raced. She could see now that this was not just about protection, it was a demonstration of patience, authority, and control. She froze, realizing that the next moment could reveal a truth about the bear's intentions that she had never anticipated. The underbrush parted, and a smaller, younger bear emerged, its fur damp, eyes curious, movements tentative. The first bear remained still, watching, evaluating. The fawn stirred slightly, and she felt a sudden jolt of understanding, the repeated dawn visits, the guidance, the careful protection, all pointed to a familial or social dynamic. The bear was not just protecting this fawn, he was teaching her, indirectly showing her the structure, patience, and instincts that governed his world. The smaller bear took a hesitant step toward the fawn, and then the first bear stepped forward, amber eyes fixed, revealing something she hadn't expected, a subtle connection, a bond, and a purpose behind every dawn visit she had witnessed. She realized, with a thrill and dread, that she was about to witness the full truth of why he had returned every morning, and it would change everything she thought she knew about the forest, the bears, and her role as observer. The forest seemed to hold its breath as the smaller bear hesitated at the edge of the clearing, eyes darting between the protective adult and the fawn. Every step it took was tentative, measured, its claws pressing lightly into the soft soil, leaving shallow imprints alongside the deeper, weathered tracks of the first bear. She could see the tension in the muscles beneath its damp fur, the subtle flick of ears, the way its nose twitched with scent, mapping the environment and reading the signals of the larger bear. Her heart pounded as she realized that this was more than a routine encounter. This was a carefully orchestrated lesson in family, trust, and survival unfolding before her eyes in the raw theater of the wild. The first bear shifted slightly, positioning himself between the fawn and the approaching younger bear, amber eyes fixed unwaveringly on the newcomer. He exhaled slowly, a deep, resonant sound that seemed to echo through the mist-laden clearing, and for a moment the younger bear froze. Then, as if weighing its options, it took another cautious step forward, and she felt a shiver run down her spine. The forest seemed suspended in time, mist curling around moss-covered trunks, the river murmuring softly in the background. She adjusted her position slightly, careful not to draw attention to herself, and tried to take in every detail. The coordination of movement, the subtle signals, the intelligence displayed in each gesture. The fawn stirred slightly, eyes wide and trusting, remaining close to the protective bear. She could see now that the fawn's trembling had diminished slightly, though it still exhibited signs of fatigue and vulnerability. The adult bear nudged it gently with his massive snout, guiding it toward a slightly more sheltered spot among low-lying ferns. The smaller bear paused at the edge, amber eyes flicking between the adult and the fawn, then took another hesitant step forward. She realized that this was a moment of introduction, of recognition, perhaps even acceptance. The adult bear demonstrating to the younger one the importance of care, patience, and cautious observation in protecting the weak. Her pulse raced. She had read countless accounts of bear behavior, had studied countless documentaries, yet nothing had prepared her for this intimate, orchestrated display of instinct and intelligence. She felt both exhilaration and fear. Every detail mattered, the way the adult bear shifted weight, the slight rumble in his throat, the careful positioning of paws, the subtle tilt of the head, all communicated a level of awareness she had never witnessed firsthand. She felt privileged, yet acutely aware that she was a fragile intruder in this delicate balance. The younger bear inched closer, nose twitching, ears flicking. Its fur was damp from the morning mist, and every movement revealed a mixture of curiosity and deference. The adult bear remained immobile, amber eyes sharp, muscles coiled, yet there was no overt aggression. Instead, there was guidance, instruction, and a silent message: observe, learn, respect boundaries. The fawn pressed closer to the protective adult, head lowered slightly, eyes flicking toward the newcomer. She felt a lump form in her throat as she realized the gravity of the lesson unfolding before her. The mist shifted, sunlight filtering through the canopy in fractured beams, illuminating patches of moss and river glinting softly in the early morning light. The air was cool, damp, and heavy with the scent of earth and vegetation. She could hear every subtle sound, the soft splashing of water, the rustle of leaves in the breeze, the gentle snapping of twigs under the smaller bear's cautious steps. Every sense was heightened, every heartbeat amplified. She inched slightly closer, careful to remain downwind and hidden, desperate to witness every nuance without disturbing the intricate choreography. And then, something extraordinary happened. The adult bear nudged the fawn again, then turned his massive head toward her, amber eyes locking onto hers with a depth of awareness that made her stomach twist. There was a message in that gaze, something she couldn't fully articulate, yet it resonated deep within her. He had allowed her to follow, to observe, perhaps even to learn, but this was more than observation. It was a test, a measure of her patience, her restraint, and her understanding of the delicate dynamics of the forest. The younger bear took another cautious step, closer now, amber eyes scanning the clearing. It sniffed the air, then approached the fawn slowly, almost reverently. The adult bear remained between them, coiled and vigilant, yet the tension had shifted. This was no longer a territorial confrontation, it was a controlled introduction, a teaching moment, a demonstration of trust and hierarchy. She realized with awe that she was witnessing a rare, almost ritualistic interaction, one that revealed the intelligence, empathy, and social structure of these magnificent creatures. Her hands trembled slightly as she adjusted her position, leaning against a moss-covered rock for support. Every sense was alert, every nerve alive. The mist clung to her coat and hair, droplets settling on her eyelashes, and sunlight glimmered through the canopy, casting fractured rays across the clearing. The fawn had begun to relax, leaning slightly against the adult bear, while the younger bear mirrored the posture cautiously, inching closer without threatening. The forest seemed to exhale with her, the tension easing but replaced by a profound sense of awe and anticipation. She realized the full scope of what was happening. The repeated dawn visits, the careful guidance, the measured interactions, this was not random behavior. The adult bear had been teaching her patience, observation, empathy, and the complex social dynamics of his world. Every step, every gesture, every subtle movement was part of a lesson in survival and care, conveyed without words but with clarity and intent. Her chest tightened with emotion as she absorbed the magnitude of what she was witnessing. And then, the twist she hadn't anticipated, the fawn lifted its head, eyes glistening in the filtered sunlight, and she noticed something she had overlooked before, a small, jagged piece of metal embedded in its leg. The bear had been guiding her here all along, leading her to the wounded creature that had been trapped or injured by human debris. The realization hit her with a mixture of shock and awe. This wasn't just about protection or ritual, it was a deliberate, purposeful act. The bear had recognized suffering caused by human activity and had orchestrated a way for her to witness it, perhaps even intervene. Her mind raced. Should she act? Could she intervene safely without startling the bears? The adult bear remained alert, muscles coiled, amber eyes flicking between her and the fawn. The younger bear lingered cautiously nearby, curious but deferential. She realized that this was the moment of truth, the culmination of all the dawn visits, all the careful observation, all the lessons in patience and awareness. She had been drawn here not by chance, but by purpose. Her heartbeat thundered as she inched slightly closer, keeping low, assessing every angle, every potential risk. The fawn's breathing was shallow but steady, and she could see that the metal fragment had caused minor bleeding. The adult bear shifted slightly, nudging the fawn gently with his massive snout, as if offering reassurance and maintaining control of the situation. She felt a lump form in her throat, understanding that any action she took would need to be deliberate, careful, and respectful of the delicate dynamics at play. The forest seemed to close in around her, mist curling, sunlight flickering, river rippling softly. The adult bear's gaze remained fixed on her, amber eyes intense but not hostile. The younger bear edged closer, ears flicking, muscles coiled, yet there was a growing sense of trust forming in the clearing. She realized with awe that she was witnessing not just protection, but communication, teaching, and guidance, all conveyed through instinct, posture, and movement. She exhaled slowly, barely daring to move, when the adult bear stepped aside, nudging the fawn forward toward her. Amber eyes met hers once more, and in that look, she understood the bear's intent. It was time for her to act, to help, to heal, and to become part of the delicate balance between human and wild. She swallowed hard, heart pounding, knowing that the next choice could change everything. Her heart pounded as she knelt slowly, every movement measured and deliberate. The adult bear remained a silent sentinel, amber eyes locked on her, muscles coiled but calm. The fawn, small and trembling, had begun to trust the space, leaning slightly against the bear's massive frame. The younger bear lingered nearby, curiosity apparent in its cautious posture, amber eyes flicking between the fawn, the adult, and her. The forest around them was alive with mist, sunlight filtering in fractured beams, illuminating moss-covered rocks and glistening dew. The river beside the clearing murmured softly, its gentle flow masking the subtle movements of life unfolding in the clearing. She exhaled slowly, trying to steady her trembling hands. Every instinct told her to proceed carefully. Every lesson she had absorbed from the repeated dawn visits told her that patience and observation were key. She had read about human interactions with wild animals, about how easily fear, hesitation, or rash action could provoke disaster, yet she now faced a moment of delicate decision-making, guided by the bear's silent instructions. The fawn's leg was shallowly cut, and she could see the metal fragment that had caused the injury. Her pulse quickened, knowing that careful intervention was necessary, but only in a way that maintained the trust established by the bear. She reached slowly into her pack, retrieving a small first aid kit she had brought along for emergencies, keeping her movements deliberate and low to the ground. The adult bear's gaze remained fixed, amber eyes reflecting a mixture of vigilance and understanding, as if granting permission without breaking the natural order. The younger bear shifted slightly, taking a cautious step closer, muscles taut, ears flicking, as if observing the interaction between her and the fawn. Every movement carried weight, every breath seemed amplified. The fawn flinched as she approached, eyes wide, but the adult bear nudged it gently, urging calm. She took a small antiseptic wipe from the kit, dampened it, and in a slow, careful motion began to clean the wound. The fawn trembled but did not attempt to move away, guided by the reassuring presence of the bear. Her hands were steady, but her mind raced. She knew she had to act with precision, respecting the bear's space while attending to the injury. Any sudden movement could shatter the fragile balance and provoke a defensive response. As she worked, she observed the intricate coordination between the bears. The adult remained close, head low, amber eyes scanning the clearing and river beyond for potential threats. The younger bear mirrored the protective posture, hesitant but alert, shifting its weight in subtle movements. She realized the repeated dawn visits, the careful observation, and the lessons she had absorbed were all part of a larger ritual of teaching, protection, and awareness. The bears were demonstrating intelligence, patience, and social structure she had never truly comprehended until now. Her fingers trembled slightly as she carefully removed the fragment of metal embedded in the fawn's leg. The fawn whinnied softly, pressing closer to the adult bear, whose presence radiated calm authority. She worked deliberately, keeping her movements fluid but slow, conscious of the bear's perception of every gesture. The sunlight glimmered off the fawn's fur, highlighting the dampness of early morning dew, the gentle rise and fall of its chest, and the subtle tension in its limbs. The river beside the clearing flowed quietly, its gentle sound a counterpoint to the heightened awareness in the clearing. Once the fragment was removed, she applied a clean dressing, careful not to startle the fawn or the bears. The adult bear shifted slightly, nudging the fawn gently with its massive snout, ensuring it was comfortable and reassured. The younger bear edged closer, sniffing the air, then sat back on its haunches, observing the process with curiosity and growing confidence. She could feel the profound intelligence and awareness in every movement of the adult bear, realizing that its repeated dawn visits had been a silent lesson in patience, observation, empathy, and trust. The fawn began to relax as the tension eased, eyes half closed in relief. She let out a quiet, almost inaudible breath, aware that her presence had been acknowledged and accepted by the adult bear. The younger bear remained attentive, ears flicking, eyes alert, as if learning from the ritual unfolding before it. Mist swirled around them, sunlight casting fractured beams across moss-covered rocks and the river, highlighting the intricate interplay of life, survival, and trust in the wild. She slowly withdrew the first aid kit, tucking it carefully into her pack. The fawn, now stable, remained close to the protective bear, leaning against its massive frame with an air of cautious comfort. She realized that she had been given a rare and intimate glimpse into the intelligence, empathy, and teaching instincts of a wild animal. Every dawn visit, every observation, every interaction had been a lesson in survival, trust, and the delicate balance between predator and prey, human and animal. And then, the twist revealed itself fully. The fawn lifted its head, looking toward her with wide, trusting eyes, then toward the adult bear, who shifted slightly, amber eyes fixed on her. In that moment, she understood the true purpose of the repeated dawn visits, the guidance, the silent lessons. The bear had been orchestrating an opportunity for her to intervene safely, to witness the injury, and to help in a controlled, respectful way. She realized that this was not just protection, it was teaching empathy, responsibility, and connection between human and wild. Her chest tightened with emotion as she watched the adult bear nudge the fawn gently forward, signaling acceptance of her presence in this delicate moment. The younger bear mirrored the behavior, stepping closer, observing, and recognizing her role without threat. She felt a profound sense of humility and awe, understanding that the bear's actions had been deliberate, purposeful, and guided by instinctive intelligence. The forest, misty and alive, seemed to hum with quiet affirmation of the delicate balance she had become part of. As she gently patted the fawn, guiding it toward a safer area beneath a cluster of ferns, she noticed the bear's subtle communication, nudges, shifts in weight, positioning, and eye contact that conveyed reassurance, instruction, and observation. The forest around them was serene, yet charged with a quiet intensity, each leaf, branch, and ripple in the river amplifying the heightened awareness in the clearing. She realized that this experience was far more than a simple act of healing, it was a lesson in coexistence, trust, and understanding the language of the wild. The fawn's breathing grew steadier, the minor wound now dressed and protected, and the adult bear finally relaxed, muscles easing from their taut stance. The younger bear lingered for a moment, then, as if satisfied, began to retreat slowly into the mist, amber eyes flicking one last time toward her. The adult bear remained close, ensuring the fawn's safety, before finally stepping back, giving her a measured, almost approving look. She felt a surge of gratitude and awe, realizing that she had been trusted to participate in a rare and profound interaction in the natural world. The mist swirled thicker now, sunlight filtering through in soft, fragmented beams. The fawn leaned fully against the adult bear, trusting, calm, and reassured. She exhaled slowly, aware that the moment she had been drawn into, the repeated dawn visits, the careful observation, the teaching, and the subtle orchestration, had culminated in this act of connection and understanding. She knew that this encounter would stay with her forever, a testament to patience, empathy, and the intelligence of wild creatures. Just as she prepared to step back and leave the clearing, the adult bear lifted its head, sniffing the air with intensity. Amber eyes locked on hers once more, and a low, deliberate growl resonated through the mist. She realized with a jolt that this encounter was not yet over, something more remained to be revealed, a final lesson that would challenge everything she thought she knew about trust, connection, and survival in the wild. The forest held a profound stillness, broken only by the soft murmur of the river and the occasional rustle of leaves. The adult bear remained immobile, amber eyes fixed on her, muscles coiled but calm, radiating an awareness and intelligence that left her breathless. The fawn leaned gently against him, eyes half-closed in relief, trusting the presence that had been its shield for so many moments. The younger bear lingered at the edge of the clearing, cautious yet curious, observing every subtle interaction, learning from the orchestrated ritual unfolding before her eyes. The mist swirled around them, curling in delicate tendrils through shafts of sunlight, creating a cinematic tableau of tension, trust, and raw beauty. She knelt slowly, every motion measured, acutely aware of the bear's perception of her presence. Her hands hovered near the fawn, ready to assist if necessary, yet restrained, respecting the delicate balance the adult bear had established. Every subtle shift in weight, flick of the ears, or movement of the eyes carried profound meaning. The forest itself seemed alive, amplifying each heartbeat, each breath, each moment of awareness. She could feel the pulse of the wild, the rhythm of survival, and the fragile trust that had been extended to her. The fawn's breathing grew steadier, small rises and falls of its chest signaling tentative calm. The adult bear maintained a low, protective stance, nudging the fawn occasionally with gentle precision, teaching resilience, patience, and the unspoken rules of coexistence. The younger bear edged slightly closer, sniffing the air, muscles coiled yet relaxed in response to the calm authority displayed by the adult. The interplay of these three creatures was mesmerizing, a delicate balance of instinct, trust, and learning, unfolding in the soft, misty morning light. She realized with a sudden clarity that this encounter was more than a single lesson or moment of observation. It was a profound demonstration of interdependence, guidance, and trust in the natural world. Every repeated dawn visit, every subtle gesture, every pause in the orchestration of behavior had been designed to prepare her for this moment, to teach her not just patience, but the profound responsibility that comes with witnessing the intricate dynamics of life in the wild. Her chest tightened with awe and humility, and she exhaled slowly, letting the rhythm of the forest seep into her awareness. The fawn stirred slightly, eyes widening, and she noticed the small wound on its leg beginning to respond to her care. She applied a gentle touch, smoothing the fur around the makeshift dressing, careful not to startle the animal. The adult bear's amber eyes tracked every motion, following her intent and decision with unspoken evaluation. She understood that this was a rare opportunity. The bear had allowed her not merely to observe, but to participate, to understand, and to respect the complex interplay of instinct, care, and authority in the wild. Her mind raced with questions. What prompted the repeated visits? Why had the bear chosen to guide her to this precise moment? The realization struck with both awe and fear. This was a carefully orchestrated lesson in trust, survival, and empathy, and she had been entrusted with the responsibility to act without disrupting the fragile equilibrium. The younger bear shifted slightly, ears flicking, amber eyes observing her every move. It was learning as well, absorbing the subtleties of guidance, patience, and authority demonstrated by the adult. She worked carefully, applying a small bandage to the fawn's wound, ensuring it was secure without restricting movement. The fawn trembled slightly but remained still, leaning against the adult bear for reassurance. She could see the bond between the two animals deepening, a mutual understanding forged through instinct and experience. The forest around them was alive with subtle sounds, the gentle ripple of the river, the rustle of leaves in a light breeze, the distant call of a bird, all accentuating the cinematic realism of the moment. And then, the adult bear shifted, stepping slightly closer to her, amber eyes locked on hers in a manner that conveyed both authority and trust. She froze, heart hammering, realizing that this was the moment where her understanding, patience, and respect for the natural order would be tested. The bear's low growl resonated through the mist, not a threat but a signal of caution and attentiveness. She swallowed hard, maintaining her composure, keeping movements deliberate and slow. The younger bear, sensing the calm authority of the adult, took a tentative step closer to the fawn, sniffing the air, learning through observation. She could see the subtle social dynamics at play, the adult bear establishing hierarchy, demonstrating guidance and patience, and the younger bear assimilating these lessons. The fawn, now more relaxed, pressed closer to the adult, eyes alert but trusting. She marveled at the intelligence and empathy displayed in the interactions, a living lesson in survival, care, and instinctual guidance. Her mind traced back to the repeated dawn visits, the careful orchestration, the moments of quiet observation, the subtle nudges and cues she had been taught to notice. She understood now that the bear had chosen her as a witness not by chance, but purposefully, gradually introducing her to the intricate layers of interaction, trust, and teaching in the wild. The forest around them seemed to recognize the gravity of the moment, mist swirling, sunlight glinting off leaves, river rippling softly, creating a tableau of realism and cinematic tension. She exhaled slowly, reaching out with a gentle hand toward the fawn. The adult bear did not flinch, amber eyes tracking her movement with quiet evaluation. The fawn pressed closer, eyes wide but trusting. She could feel the raw emotion, the responsibility, and the connection in that single moment, the culmination of all previous observations and interactions. The younger bear remained attentive, ears flicking, body tense but calm, learning from the subtle gestures and authority displayed. And then, the twist fully revealed itself. The adult bear nudged the fawn gently toward her, stepping aside deliberately, amber eyes meeting hers with an intensity that conveyed recognition, trust, and expectation. She realized with a jolt that the bear had orchestrated this moment for a singular purpose, to allow her to actively participate in care, to bridge the gap between human and wild, to witness and contribute to a rare act of empathy and survival. Her heart pounded, awareness heightened, as she prepared to take her next deliberate step. Every muscle in her body was alert, every sense heightened. She gently guided the fawn into a slightly more sheltered spot beneath low ferns, checking the bandage once more. The adult bear observed closely, nudging the fawn occasionally to encourage calm and compliance. The younger bear mirrored the stance, learning through observation, muscles coiled yet relaxed. The forest around them was alive with subtle movement, the ripple of water, the swaying of leaves, the soft rustle of underbrush, amplifying the cinematic realism of the encounter. As she settled into position, crouched low beside the fawn, she felt a profound sense of awe, humility, and gratitude. The repeated dawn visits, the careful orchestration, and the subtle lessons had culminated in a moment of deep emotional resonance. The bears had not only allowed her presence, but had guided her to understand, respect, and engage with their world in a way that few humans ever experience. She exhaled slowly, letting the rhythm of the forest, the river, and the animals seep into her awareness, a profound lesson in trust, care, and coexistence. Just as she felt a sense of tentative closure, the adult bear's ears twitched, amber eyes narrowing. The fawn froze, and the younger bear stiffened. From the misty edge of the clearing, a faint rustle echoed, a sound that hinted at another presence. Her breath caught in her throat as she realized the forest was about to reveal yet another challenge, one that could test the fragile bond she had just begun to understand. The rustle at the edge of the clearing was subtle at first, almost imperceptible beneath the gentle flow of the river and the occasional whistle of wind through the trees. Yet the adult bear stiffened immediately, muscles coiling like springs, amber eyes narrowing in focused attention. The fawn pressed closer to his massive frame, shivering slightly, while the younger bear stepped back instinctively, ears flicking toward the sound with growing tension. She held her breath, heart pounding in her chest, every instinct screaming caution. The forest had gone utterly silent, as if holding its breath along with her, amplifying the suspense in the mist-laden clearing. She scanned the perimeter carefully, aware that even the slightest movement could alter the delicate balance she had spent the morning learning to respect. The rustle grew louder, accompanied by the soft snap of a twig under weight. She could now make out the vague outline of another bear, large but younger than the adult, its fur damp from the morning mist. Amber eyes glinted with curiosity but also caution as it emerged slowly from the edge of the clearing. The adult bear remained unwavering, stance protective, nudging the fawn gently while keeping muscles taut and senses alert. The newcomer paused, nose twitching, scanning the clearing, and then slowly approached the fawn. Her pulse quickened, realizing that this was not just a random encounter, this was a test of patience, judgment, and trust. The adult bear stepped slightly forward, positioning himself squarely between the newcomer and the fawn, a low, resonant growl rumbling in his chest. She could feel the vibration through the soles of her feet, through the mist, a warning, a statement of authority. The younger bear mirrored the stance of the adult, muscles taut, eyes fixed, ears angled to detect even the slightest sign of aggression. She exhaled slowly, careful not to move abruptly. Every instinct in her body screamed caution, but she reminded herself that the bears had already demonstrated extraordinary levels of intelligence, patience, and social awareness. This was another lesson, unfolding organically, a raw display of interaction in the wild that few humans ever witnessed firsthand. She adjusted her position slightly, remaining downwind, hands low, ready to react but restrained, fully aware that her presence could either escalate or stabilize the unfolding encounter. The newcomer bear inched closer, nostrils flaring, eyes scanning both the fawn and the adult bear. For a moment, the forest held its breath, and she realized she could hear her own heartbeat echoing in her ears. Then, in a subtle but extraordinary gesture, the adult bear lowered his massive head, nudging the fawn gently toward the newcomer. The fawn hesitated, ears flicking, muscles trembling, yet it remained calm under the protective watch of the adult. Her eyes widened in disbelief. This was not aggression, it was an orchestrated introduction, a measured demonstration of trust, guidance, and cautious acceptance. The younger bear, still observing, inched slightly closer, mirroring the careful behavior of the adult. She realized that all previous dawn visits, all patient observation, and all subtle interactions had prepared her to understand and interpret this moment. The bears were communicating in a language of instinct, observation, and social hierarchy, teaching her lessons that no book, video, or guide could ever fully convey. Her chest tightened as she felt the weight of the moment, the convergence of human presence, animal intelligence, and raw wilderness instinct in one living tableau. The newcomer bear finally stepped fully into the clearing, pausing a few feet from the fawn, and lowered its head in a subtle mimicry of the adult's posture. The tension in the air was palpable, yet there was a sense of ritual, of social dynamics at play, rather than danger. The adult bear slowly moved back, amber eyes fixed on both the fawn and the newcomer, guiding the interaction without force. The fawn, still trembling, stepped tentatively toward the newcomer, encouraged by the calm authority of the protective adult. She realized then that the repeated dawn visits, the patient observation, and the subtle nudges had been preparing her not merely to witness but to understand, truly understand, the complex social intelligence of these creatures. The forest seemed to pause, the mist curling in slow, deliberate swirls, the river murmuring softly, all amplifying the cinematic tension of the unfolding drama. She could feel the raw emotional weight of the moment, the intertwined lives of predator, prey, and human converging in a fragile yet powerful equilibrium. The newcomer bear sniffed the fawn tentatively, amber eyes blinking, before gently nudging it with its nose. The fawn responded, pressing closer to the newcomer while still leaning on the adult bear, creating a delicate bridge of trust and communication. She could feel tears prickling her eyes as she watched the silent orchestration, an unspoken testament to patience, empathy, and instinctive intelligence. Every movement carried meaning, the adult bear demonstrating guidance, the younger bear observing, the newcomer learning social cues, and the fawn trusting instinctively. And then, the twist, the moment she had not anticipated, occurred. The adult bear stepped aside completely, amber eyes meeting hers directly, as if conveying recognition, approval, and expectation simultaneously. She understood fully, the bear had not only orchestrated this reunion, this lesson in trust and social intelligence, but had deliberately included her in the experience. She had been drawn here not by chance, but by design, to witness, participate, and respect the raw, emotional reality of life in the wild. Her chest tightened with emotion, and she moved slowly, crouched low, allowing the fawn and newcomer bear to interact under her careful observation. The fawn leaned fully against the newcomer bear, amber eyes wide but trusting, while the adult remained alert yet calm, providing a stabilizing presence. The younger bear mirrored the postures of the adult, muscles coiled but relaxed, learning and absorbing each nuanced gesture. Mist swirled through shafts of fractured sunlight, highlighting dew-laden ferns, moss-covered rocks, and rippling river, creating a cinematic tableau of emotion, tension, and realism. She gently extended a hand toward the fawn, careful not to startle it, and felt a profound connection, a bridge between human empathy and wild instinct. The adult bear observed closely, amber eyes tracking every movement, ensuring that trust and safety were maintained. The fawn responded, pressing closer, and for the first time, she sensed a fragile, mutual understanding forming. The younger bear remained vigilant, amber eyes flicking between her, the fawn, and the newcomer, muscles coiled yet calm, absorbing the dynamic interplay of guidance, trust, and social learning. Her heart pounded, overwhelmed by the intensity and significance of the moment. She had been allowed not just to observe but to participate, to connect, and to respect the unspoken rules of the wild. Every heartbeat, every breath, every cautious movement reinforced the fragile but profound bond that had formed over repeated dawns of observation, care, and trust building. The forest itself seemed to recognize the gravity of the moment, the mist curling softly, sunlight filtering through branches, river rippling gently, all creating an immersive, cinematic realism. As she leaned forward slightly to offer reassurance to the fawn, the newcomer bear's ears twitched sharply, amber eyes narrowing, muscles tensing. A distant but unmistakable sound echoed through the clearing, a low rumble, deep and deliberate, unlike any she had heard before. The adult bear's posture stiffened instantly, nudging the fawn closer, while the younger bear's hackles rose. Her breath caught in her throat. She realized, with a shiver, that the forest was about to reveal another layer of danger or revelation, something that could challenge everything she thought she understood about trust, instinct, and survival in this delicate wilderness moment. The low rumble echoed through the mist-laden clearing, reverberating through the trees and underbrush. It was a sound that resonated in her chest, primal and unsettling, yet not immediately threatening, more a signal than a declaration. The adult bear stiffened further, muscles taut under thick brown fur, amber eyes narrowing in focused assessment. The fawn pressed instinctively against the protective frame, ears flicking, trembling slightly, while the younger bear crouched low, observing, muscles coiled like springs, ready to respond if necessary. She froze, breath held, understanding that the forest itself had become a participant in this unfolding drama, that every sound, movement, and glance carried profound significance. The mist hung thick, curling around moss-covered rocks and swaying ferns, soft shafts of morning light filtering through the canopy. The river murmured beside them, its gentle flow belying the tension thick in the clearing. Her heart pounded as she tried to process what she was witnessing, a lesson in instinct, trust, and subtle communication unfolding in real time. The adult bear's posture was calm yet authoritative, every muscle conveying vigilance and intelligence, a silent assertion of control over the situation. The newcomer bear remained hesitant, amber eyes scanning for threats, muscles coiled, while the fawn remained tucked against the adult, seemingly reassured but aware. She realized she had been granted a rare window into the world of animal intelligence, a lesson that transcended observation and moved into participation. Every repeated dawn visit, every subtle cue, had prepared her to interpret the signs of tension, reassurance, and instruction displayed by the bears. She felt the weight of responsibility settle over her, awareness sharpened to an almost unbearable degree. Every sound, every flick of an ear, every subtle shift in the misty light seemed to carry meaning she could barely comprehend, yet she understood instinctively that caution and respect were paramount. The source of the rumble began to emerge, a distant movement among the trees, low and deliberate, signaling a large animal approaching. The adult bear's growl deepened, resonating through the clearing, a warning and a declaration of presence. The fawn pressed closer, trembling slightly, while the younger bear moved to flank the adult, muscles coiled in readiness. She exhaled slowly, trying to remain as small and non-threatening as possible, hands low, eyes soft yet alert, fully aware that any sudden movement could trigger aggression or flight. The forest around them seemed to hold its breath, amplifying the cinematic tension, every leaf, branch, and ripple in the river contributing to the raw realism of the moment. The approaching figure slowly emerged from the mist, a massive, older bear, scarred along one side of its face, amber eyes locked on the clearing with deliberate intensity. The adult bear did not retreat. Instead, he squared his stance, nudging the fawn gently toward a small rise in the terrain, signaling temporary safety while asserting control. The younger bear mirrored the stance, muscles taut, ears angled forward, attentive to the signals of the elder and adult bears. She felt the intensity of the moment press on her chest, every nerve ending aware of the precarious balance unfolding before her. The elder bear sniffed the air, amber eyes flicking between the fawn, the adult, the newcomer, and her. There was a subtle recognition in the posture, a slow acceptance as if assessing the social dynamics and the hierarchy established in the clearing. The adult bear remained immovable, muscles relaxed only enough to convey calm authority, nudging the fawn gently yet firmly. The younger bear stayed close, observing, learning the unspoken rules of dominance, protection, and cooperation. The fawn, still trembling, began to settle, encouraged by the deliberate movements of its protector. She could not tear her eyes away, fully captivated by the intelligence and social nuance on display. Every movement carried weight, every glance conveyed unspoken communication. She realized that the repeated dawn visits had been preparing her for this exact moment, a live demonstration of social order, protection, and trust-building in the wild. Her heart swelled with awe, empathy, and a profound respect for the delicate balance she had become part of. The mist swirled thickly, sunlight glinting off dew-laden ferns and moss-covered rocks, creating a cinematic and almost sacred tableau. The elder bear stepped closer, cautiously circling the fawn and adult bear, sniffing the ground, assessing each presence. The adult bear lowered its massive head, amber eyes locking with hers for a brief moment, conveying a message she could not put into words: trust, patience, observation. She felt an almost spiritual connection in that moment, a deep understanding that the bears were teaching her about life, instinct, and the subtle dynamics of survival and empathy. The younger bear mirrored the adult's stance, attentive, muscles coiled yet calm, absorbing every gesture. The newcomer bear, once hesitant, now edged closer to the fawn, encouraged by the stability of the adult bear and the absence of immediate threat. The fawn followed, stepping lightly, still relying on the adult for reassurance. She realized that the adult bear had orchestrated an extraordinary demonstration of trust and guidance, allowing the fawn to meet the newcomer safely while including her as a witness to this subtle but powerful act of social learning. Mist hung thickly, sunlight fractured into beams, illuminating the rippling river, mossy rocks, and swaying ferns with cinematic beauty. And then, the twist that would define the climax: the elder bear, after circling, settled a few feet from the fawn, amber eyes softening slightly, muscles relaxing in acknowledgement of the trust and hierarchy established. The adult bear exhaled audibly, a deep, resonant sound of relief and reassurance, nudging the fawn gently toward the newcomer. The fawn pressed forward, hesitant yet reassured, while the younger bear mirrored the calm authority, muscles relaxed, ears flicking, learning the power of observation, patience, and social understanding. Her breath caught as she observed the full orchestration, the repeated dawn visits, the careful guidance, the nuanced communication, and the deliberate introduction, all culminating in a living lesson of trust, empathy, and social intelligence. She could feel the emotional weight of the moment pressing on her chest, an awareness that this rare experience would remain with her forever. The forest around them seemed alive, mist curling, sunlight glinting off dew, river murmuring softly, all amplifying the cinematic realism of the unfolding drama. She reached out slowly, hands low, careful not to startle the fawn, and offered a gentle pat. The fawn leaned slightly into her, amber eyes blinking with cautious trust. The adult bear observed closely, amber eyes assessing, muscles relaxed only enough to convey calm authority. The younger bear remained vigilant yet calm, absorbing every nuance of the interaction. She realized that this moment, this bridge between human and wild, protection and trust, empathy and instinct, was the culmination of weeks of observation and understanding. And then, just as she began to feel a sense of tentative closure, a sudden, sharp noise shattered the quiet, the snap of a large branch upstream. All four bears froze, amber eyes alert, muscles coiled, ears angled sharply toward the source. The fawn pressed instinctively against the adult, trembling slightly. Her heart leapt into her throat. She realized with a jolt that despite all the trust, patience, and guidance, the forest remained unpredictable, a reminder that true survival depended not on control, but on respect, awareness, and vigilance. The adult bear's growl rumbled low in the clearing, vibrating through her chest. The fawn froze, the younger bear tensed, and the elder bear's eyes narrowed sharply. From the shadowed edge of the trees, a large shape moved deliberately toward the clearing, something she had not expected. Her pulse raced as she realized that the final lesson, the ultimate test of trust, empathy, and instinct, was about to unfold, and there was no turning back. The forest seemed to hold its breath, shadows stretching long across the mist-laden clearing as the large shape emerged from the trees. Her heart raced uncontrollably, every instinct screaming caution, yet a profound sense of awe anchored her in place. The adult bear remained taut and unwavering, amber eyes scanning the newcomer with an intensity that demanded attention, respect, and absolute precision. The fawn pressed instinctively against the protective frame, shivering but trustful, while the younger bear mirrored the adult's stance, muscles coiled yet controlled, ready to respond to any shift in the delicate balance. The newcomer, a massive, scarred bear, stepped cautiously into the clearing, nostrils flaring, amber eyes alert but calm. There was no aggression in its movement, only measured observation, a careful assessment of the established dynamics. She exhaled slowly, realizing that this was the culmination of everything she had been witnessing for days. A profound lesson in social hierarchy, trust, instinct, and empathy, all unfolding in raw, cinematic realism. The mist swirled in slow, deliberate patterns, sunlight filtering through the dense canopy, creating a visual tableau that seemed almost sacred in its intensity. Her gaze shifted repeatedly between the fawn, the adult bear, the younger bear, and the newcomer, each moment carrying emotional weight she had never anticipated. The adult bear nudged the fawn gently, positioning it subtly closer to the newcomer, while maintaining a stance of vigilance. The fawn hesitated briefly, amber eyes wide, yet pressed forward under the protective guidance of the adult. The younger bear observed intently, muscles coiled but calm, learning, absorbing, and mirroring every gesture, every subtle shift in posture, every nuance of communication. She felt her own pulse synchronize with the rhythm of the forest, the soft murmur of the river, the distant call of birds, the whisper of wind through leaves, and the faint rustle of underbrush. Every element seemed alive, contributing to the tension and beauty of the moment. She realized, with a rush of clarity and humility, that the bears had included her not by accident but by deliberate intention, to teach, to witness, and to respect the intricate social bonds that governed their world. Her chest tightened with a mixture of awe, gratitude, and responsibility. The newcomer bear lowered its massive head slightly, amber eyes locking with the fawn, assessing trust, intent, and awareness. The fawn responded instinctively, pressing closer to the newcomer while glancing back at the adult bear for reassurance. The adult bear's low growl rumbled through the clearing, not as a threat but as affirmation, a silent directive signaling that trust and careful observation were paramount. The younger bear shifted slightly, mirroring the adult's authority and composure, absorbing the lesson with quiet intensity. She crouched low, hands gently extended, allowing herself to witness and participate without disrupting the fragile equilibrium. The fawn leaned slightly into her touch, amber eyes blinking with cautious trust, while the adult bear observed closely, amber gaze tracking every subtle motion. Mist curled in the sunlight, shafts of light illuminating the wet ferns, moss-covered rocks, and rippling water of the nearby river. It was cinematic, breathtaking, and intensely emotional, a moment that would remain etched in her memory forever. And then, the twist revealed itself fully. The newcomer bear, after a slow assessment, lowered its head, nudging the fawn gently with a surprising delicacy. The fawn responded immediately, pressing fully against the newcomer, a bridge of trust forged through instinct and careful guidance. She realized with amazement that the adult bear had orchestrated this encounter with meticulous precision. Repeated dawn visits, patient observation, and careful introduction had culminated in the fawn being fully accepted by the newcomer. The younger bear mirrored the gestures, muscles relaxing, absorbing the full spectrum of lessons in authority, patience, and empathy. Her chest tightened with an emotion she could scarcely name: relief, awe, humility, and an overwhelming respect for the intelligence and social nuance displayed by these animals. Every heartbeat, every breath, every subtle gesture carried profound significance. She had been granted not merely observation, but inclusion, a rare privilege to witness and participate in a living demonstration of instinct, trust, and emotional depth. The forest itself seemed to respond, mist curling in deliberate patterns, sunlight glinting off dew, and the river murmuring softly, amplifying the cinematic tension and realism. Slowly, carefully, she reached out to the fawn again, extending her hand with quiet reverence. The fawn leaned fully into her touch, amber eyes blinking, trusting her presence. The adult bear remained vigilant but relaxed, while the younger bear mirrored the calm authority, muscles coiled but serene, learning the subtle dynamics of trust, patience, and guidance. The newcomer bear observed closely, nodding subtly in recognition of the adult bear's orchestration and the fawn's tentative acceptance. The entire clearing radiated with emotion, tension, and a profound connection that transcended words. She allowed herself a long, deep exhale, feeling the weight of the experience press against her chest, a mixture of gratitude, awe, and humility. Weeks of repeated dawn visits, patient observation, and subtle lessons had led to this singular moment, a demonstration of empathy, instinct, and social learning at its purest form. The forest, the river, and the mist all seemed to converge in a perfect, cinematic tableau of trust, connection, and understanding. She felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes, overwhelmed by the depth of what she had witnessed and been allowed to participate in. The fawn now pressed fully against the newcomer, eyes closed briefly in a moment of pure trust. The adult bear gave a low, approving growl, amber eyes sweeping over the clearing, muscles relaxing. The younger bear mirrored the posture, attentive yet calm, learning the social and emotional dynamics of the encounter. She realized that the repeated dawn visits, the careful observation, and the patient guidance had not only prepared her to witness this moment but had allowed her to understand, internalize, and respect the intricate relationships within the wild. And finally, the resolution, the adult bear slowly stepped back, amber eyes meeting hers directly, conveying trust, approval, and a subtle acknowledgement of her presence. The fawn, nestled securely between the newcomer and adult, appeared calm and reassured. The younger bear mirrored the adult's relaxed stance, muscles coiled but at ease. The forest seemed to exhale as the tension dissipated, mist curling gently, sunlight illuminating the dew-laden ferns, moss-covered rocks, and rippling river. She allowed herself to sit back on her heels, heart racing, absorbing the depth of what she had witnessed, a raw, emotional, and profoundly realistic lesson in trust, empathy, and social intelligence. The outro, her reflection, she whispered softly, almost to herself, "This is what it means to witness life, to understand instinct, patience, and the power of empathy in the wild. Survival isn't just about strength, it's about trust, connection, and respect." The bears continued to stand in the clearing, fawn nestled safely, newcomer bear calm, adult bear relaxed, and younger bear attentive but serene. She realized that this moment, fragile yet powerful, would remain with her forever, a testament to the profound intelligence, empathy, and guidance embedded in the natural world. And as the mist began to thin, sunlight breaking fully through the canopy, she turned slowly to leave, heart swelling with gratitude, mind etched with lessons she could never unlearn. The adult bear watched her go, amber eyes following her every step, then returned attention to the fawn and newcomer, a silent guardian and teacher. The younger bear lingered briefly, then followed the adult, leaving the clearing bathed in golden light, river rippling softly, ferns swaying in the breeze. She paused at the edge of the clearing, looking back one last time. The fawn lifted its small head, eyes meeting hers briefly, a subtle acknowledgement passing between human and animal. She smiled softly, tears on her cheeks, and whispered again, "Thank you." The forest remained alive with the quiet hum of nature, the river, birds, and whispering leaves. But now it carried a sense of resolution, trust, and profound connection. Even as she turned away, a distant sound, a faint rustle, almost imperceptible, reminded her that the wild was never fully predictable. The lesson was complete, yet the forest would continue to teach, always, in subtle, profound, and deeply emotional ways. She exhaled, walking slowly toward the path, each step a reflection on the trust, empathy, and patience she had witnessed, forever changed by a rare encounter in the heart of the wilderness. What would you have done if you found yourself in a clearing like this, witnessing such trust and connection? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to like and subscribe to experience more raw, emotional stories from the wild.